Hey, my name's Robert Kaferle, and you're listening to Trucking Fitness Radio.
Now I'm making noise, they wondering what's all that ruckus. That's a 18-wheeler, semi-trailer, I'ma keep it trucking. Big rig driving, cargo hauling, I'ma keep it trucking. U-Haul moving, F-150, let's just keep it trucking. Out here busting moves, I ain't got time for no discussion.
Welcome back to Trucking Fitness Radio, the number one driver's health and fitness podcast in the world. My name is Dr. Mark Manera. I'm the founder and CEO of Supply Chain Fitness, and I'm excited to have you listening to this episode. As you're aware, we are on a mission to make the trucking industry a healthier place to work, and this podcast is just one of the ways that we're doing it. Today, we've got an awesome guest on the show, Robert Kaferle. He's the VP of Safety at Reliance Partners. We're going to talk all things health, safety, and how trucking companies can shift their safety culture. But Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, hey, this is a fitness podcast, so I always like to start the question, and this you can answer it however you want to answer it, but what do you like to do for fitness?
Well, I'll tell you, I have about 4 acres of property that I work on, and that takes up a lot of time and a lot of fitness. My wife and I ride motorcycle, so I enjoy doing that, and just getting out and living life.
All right, I love it. So you're not push mowing 4 acres. You've got to ride, but you got some projects. I'm sure a list of projects that never shortens, always grows, and you can never keep up with.
That's right. So if you're willing to volunteer to come out and help, I'll give you my address.
Hey, there's a price. There's always a price, but I'm not sure if, I don't know if that's going to be a good fit for me. But no, I appreciate you coming on the show. And I'm not a motorcycle guy, but are you a Harley guy, or what type of bike do you ride?
No, I ride a Kawasaki 1600. It's a 2003. So it's an older bike, but I enjoy turning wrenches and working on stuff. So you name it, I've rebuilt it on that bike. So that's part of the passion is getting your hands dirty and being able to get out and ride something that you've put back together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is cool. Well, so before we get deep into the safety side of things, I do really actually want to hear your, the story of how you got into the industry, the story of how you got, from truck driver to the insurance world, and also how you got to Reliance Partners. So I'd love to kind of hear your, up and coming story of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I'd love to share. When I got out of high school, I was not college material, let's say. So I decided that I knew there was you could make a good living in trucking. I had family that was in trucking, and I've always looked up to my Uncle Oates, who was he hauled acid out of Pittsburgh, the steel mills. And I always looked up to him, and I always wanted to be a truck driver. So when I got out of high school, I went to work for a trucking company, working on a dock LTL company. And when I turned 21, they taught me to drive. I got a CDL and drove for years for them, city LTL over the road. My first truck was a 76 Ford. Single axle, no air, no power steering.
Oh my God.
Fort Worth. The summers were tough.
Oh,
and but eventually I went over the road, and I transitioned to a truckload carrier in Texas and worked for them. Started out on nights and weekends, not knowing anything, and left them 11 and a half years later as their director of Northeast operations. So that's where I kind of got my operations, got my experience, and then transitioned to VP of operations for a trucking company in Tennessee, and various companies I transitioned to. But my last company, last trucking company I was at, I was contacted by Nationwide Insurance to do loss control. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. And they said, we'll teach you that. We can't teach trucking. It's just something you learn. So I'm like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
So I spent about 6.5 years there evaluating risk and talking with carriers and helping them get better. And found this opportunity with Reliance Partners. We were brought in, Brian Reynolds and I were brought in to help them build a safety program for our clients. And we've, from the ground up, had a blank slate. Reliance has given us everything that we need, except for a simulator. You know, we asked for that, and they were like, "No, not just yet." So that's completely understandable. But they've been fantastic to work with, and they've done a fantastic job supporting us at everything that we need and helping us develop this program. And we've seen a lot of positive things come out of that, helping producers evaluate risk and present it to markets, and helping clients that are with us now get better.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting, and I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper of when you were at that job in trucking, because we've got members and we've got drivers who, you know, listen to this show and are like, yeah, I like trucking, I like driving, but I think, you know, at some point in my career I want to make that shift to more of the operations or safety department of working at a trucking company, but not driving for a company. So can you, how did that change happen? What was the evolution of, I went from driver to X role to then, you know, operations, or walk me through that period of time?
Yeah, well, really, from my perspective, what you need to do if you want to make that transition, if you're thinking about making that transition, education's key. Even though you may not have gone to college or secondary education, there's all kinds of ways to educate yourself. And really, from a truck driver, you're already fairly knowledgeable in hours of service regulations, and if you do hazmat regulations. So you've already got the foundation. So if you want to make that transition, continue to grow your knowledge base and understand how to work with people, because that's going to be key. It doesn't matter if you are a people person or not a people person, you're an introvert, extrovert, you've got to understand how to work with people. And then you've got to understand how to deal with that yourself, recharge, spend some extra time in your office working on stuff alone. But you've got to understand how to deal with people first. Really, when I was a kid, I said I would never have a sales job. I'm not like that, I don't think. But then when I stopped and realized about it, that's kind of what I do, is I sell the idea of safety for people to understand and grasp so they can embrace it. And really what I want to do is have them understand the impact that it has on their company and on their lives, so they can help themselves get better. And it's I don't like to think of it as sales, but it is sales.
Well, everything sells, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everything in life is, you're trying to, you've got an idea and someone's got a slightly different idea, and you're trying to show them that, hey, this is actually a better approach at this, or whatever you're doing, there's some sales
Yes.
involved in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's just the way you think about it and look at it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
No, you don't have to be a used car salesman. You can have some ethical, but but that's no, I appreciate that. And you know, I think it's really good to hear some like actual someone who went from that, you know, driving to that side of things. And you know, now I'm sure it's even easier to educate yourself out on the road because of YouTube, because of podcasts, all of these different means that, you know, right in a phone you have all this access to information. And so Yeah, drivers, if you're listening, here's an example of how you can do it if that's something you're interested in. And talk to me about Reliance Partners. I know you're on the safety loss control side of things, but walk me through kind of how you explain what Reliance Partners is and some of the differentiators you guys have compared to maybe some of the other insurance agencies out there.
So, so I'm going to give the first educational talk for some of these drivers may not understand how insurance works.
Yeah.
So they can have a grasp on kind of how this whole industry works. There's really, and there's different ways of doing it, but this is the most common way of a transaction to be set up. There's a market that sells the insurance. They're the insurance company, kind of like Great West or Nationwide. So they're the insurance company, and then there's an agent that represents the insurance company. That's called the general agent. And then there's a retail agent that represents the trucking company in this transaction. So there's 4 entities in this transaction. There could be less, but this is the most common. So the trucking company engages the retail agent to represent them in this transaction, and the retail agent works with the general agent to get to the market, which is the insurance company that insures. So what we do is we have a lot of markets that we work with, a lot of general agents. In some markets, we can go straight to them and skip the general agent, but we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of resources for our clients. From a safety and compliance standpoint, when Brian and I got to Reliance, there was some safety, but we've revamped the program, and we now have some kind of safety services available for any size client. Brian and I, we start visiting clients at $100,000 in premium. So even for the carriers that are smaller than that, we have resources that are available, website that they can access, safety documents that we've written or we've established. We've brought together kind of like a library, so they have access to that as well. And then our producers have access to that. So if they need to pull something out and provide it to their client, they can. We are just finishing up on a online library of videos for online video training. And it is, we're just finishing this up and rolling it out to our clients, and it's going to be absolutely excellent for them.
That's cool. You guys need like a yearly Reliance Partners customer conference that you guys can all go to and do there's a business idea for you. There's
Well,
there's an
thanks.
idea for it. Yeah. But no, so I think something that one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, and something where I'm excited about, is the recent partnership that we've come together and really worked together to Reliance Partners and Supply Chain Fitness, because you have the same thought process as we do of saying, hey, healthier drivers are safer drivers, and everyone wins if we can show drivers a way to live a healthier life out on the road. And so I'd be interested in just hearing some of the behind the scenes of, as I guess probably just you and Brian talking about, hey, what are some ways or some things that we can have preferred vendors that come in and have resources that we can give to clients when they have a solution or problem that they need a solution to, and specifically thinking about the health of drivers and how that affects on a loss control perspective.
Well, we look at safety as holistic. And there's a different mindset when you're a proactive carrier when it comes to safety and a reactive carrier. And what we do when we go in and visit with carriers is we can tell, looking at data and talking to people, I can tell, Brian can tell, before we even go in, what kind of carrier you are. just by your trends, what we're seeing, the violations we're seeing. So reactive versus proactive. So a proactive carrier is going to be proactive in their approach to safety, and that also permeates across their whole organization. So it's proactive maintenance versus reactive maintenance. It's proactive driver retention instead of reactive driver retention. It's proactive safety versus reactive safety. So when we talk about providing vendor information and preferred vendors, what we do is we put together a group of vendors that will bring value add to our clients and help them move in that proactive versus reactive direction. And really, we saw driver fitness as one of those things that is very proactive, because honestly, the health of the most important thing a trucking company has is drivers. Ask an owner.
Yeah.
So they're always recruiting. They're always trying to find more drivers. They're always trying to fill seats. And the carriers that are not doing that, that have a list, are very proactive in the way that they take care of their drivers. They're very driver focused. They're very centered on how they take care of drivers in their organization. So bringing driver fitness into that discussion is a way, one, a proactive carrier can address their drivers' needs. It's also a great recruiting tool, because all these drivers are being inundated with cents per mile and driver referral bonuses and the best equipment. All right, every carrier can get that. Every carrier can do that. But does every carrier go the extra mile and invest in their drivers, their health, their education? We talked earlier about education, and if there's not a career path for a driver at an organization to move up, if there's not former drivers in the organization, then maybe that's a question that you ask. Why isn't there? So we see this opportunity as a way for us as safety professionals and an insurance company to show carriers how they can invest in their drivers, retain them long-term, keep them healthier, and help them recruit drivers with value add.
Yeah. Well, and also on the recruiting side of things is if that's part of your culture, right? Taking care of drivers, helping drivers take care of themselves, it's going to attract those types of people too, because people want to be around those types of companies.
Absolutely.
And so, and I think also from, the loss control and safety side of things, that doesn't get brought up a lot on the retention side of things, because when trucking companies are talking about retention, it's always, well, crap, it costs us $8,000 per turnover. Our recruiting budget's out the door, and we got to get this turnover rate done. But on the back end of having new drivers coming in, the increased risk that has from a safety perspective of not having veteran and drivers who've been with the company for long term behind the wheel. And so I completely agree with you.
Well, I can tell you that definitely is a metric that underwriters at organizations, markets look at, insurance companies look at, is the amount of drivers that have been with the carrier less than a year. And that insurance companies crunch numbers like crazy. So they know that drivers that have been with a carrier less than a year are more apt to have accidents, regardless of experience. So there's new equipment, new routes, unfamiliar processes and procedures, and all that takes a toll on the drivers. So in that first year, there's a more likely percentage of them having accidents. And absolutely that falls into your insurance premium.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think the biggest topic that I wanted and I was excited to talk to you about, because you're an expert in this field on safety culture and helping trucking companies develop that. And one of the things when we were talking previously, and we've had a couple of conversations about safety and just the industry as a whole, but something that was brought up that I thought was interesting was the fact that every trucking company kind of looks at themselves with those rosy glasses and thinks, yeah, we've got a great safety culture, right? And so I would just love to kind of hear, your thoughts on that in general, and kind of how you go about, when you go into a company looking at it and you hear those, the owners or the safety director saying, yeah, we've got great safety culture, and maybe, you're looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because Brian and I, we visit clients all the time, and we visit clients from small 10 power unit carriers up to 300-400 power unit carriers, larger, even larger. So when we go visit those clients, we have the opportunity of perspective, seeing what other clients, that client size that we're visiting, how they are working and what they're doing. And we can take not proprietary stuff, but we can take ideas and best practices from one carrier to the next that owners won't see, because they're focused on what they're doing. They're focused on their organization. And really, it's a great idea to bring somebody in from the outside to look at your organization, not necessarily to find things or find people that aren't doing their job. That's part of running an organization. You can do that. Owners do that. Managers do that. But really to come in and evaluate what you guys are doing from a carrier perspective, what you could be doing differently, what you could be doing better, the things that, and comment on the things that you are doing well to give you validation. Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. Or I would tweak this to do this to get this reaction. So we give those all the time. We do those recommendations, and we do those and a lot of things that we talk about, a lot of things that we recommend, the carriers that we've visited with have never thought of before. So so really it's a plus, it's a win to have us come in and visit, because either we're validating what you're doing or we're providing guidance to make the carrier better.
Yeah. No, and I think I think the concept of safety culture, but I think just like the word culture in general, sometimes, you've got people in the safety department or, other people in the organization, and they're like, oh, that's an HR thing. We don't have to worry about, we don't have to worry about culture. We don't do any of that. And I think that is changing, but give me your elevator pitch of what safety culture is. And, secondly, like when you're trying to convince, hey, we need to make a shift here in the culture of safety at your organization, what are some of those benefits that you're seeing long term and maybe short term as well?
Yeah, when I talk to carriers, I talk to them about having the whole organization involved in safety, and the discussion really takes a surprising turn when we talk about it's not just dispatch, and it's not operations, and it's not just safety, but it's maintenance, and it's your HR department, and it's your payroll, and it's obviously recruiting, driver retention, and anyone in that organization has a responsibility and an impact on culture. So what that means is, if we're talking to a driver on the phone about his payroll, at the end of the conversation, take an extra second or two and ask them, hey, how are things going? What can we do better? Have that conversation with that person, and treat them like a person instead of just a number or a truck, because that's really they're they're a truck, or they're a person, and they're going to be thinking about that interaction they could be thinking about it the rest of the day, because I mean, they're alone, they don't have a lot of things to distract them or talk about or communicate with, so they'll be thinking about that. And if it's a positive interaction, it's going to be a positive thought.
Brownie points stacking up. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So it's not just dispatch. I talk to carriers all the time that have bad maintenance scores. What are you doing with your maintenance scores? And this, well, we're working on it. Well, you have a maintenance director, that's his job. So it's spreading it around and making each department and each person accountable for either safety or the safety culture. And really, safety culture goes back to just treating people the way that you want to be treated.
Yeah, no, I like that. And, I think one of, obviously there's a ton of pros to looking at all the data points, diving deep on all these data points. But I think one key area that, if not thought about, can get left behind is looking at each driver as a human and not just the line on the Excel sheet. And, I think drivers can feel that. And drivers, I've talked to drivers who are members of ours who say, yeah, I wish, that's this X trucking company I used to work at. I didn't feel validated as a human. I just felt as though I was a person, that they were moving around on the computer screen. And so I think that goes a long way. And, when you are, as a company and your revenue generating engine is the driver, it's something that you should really think about and you should care about. So.
Absolutely. I can tell you from my experience when I was dispatching, we were a regional carrier. Average length of haul was 350 miles. I had all company trucks. I had 50 power units, 50 drivers on my board that I was responsible for. So I was talking to those drivers at least once a day, if not twice a day. Just to dispatch if they had any other issues or check calls. So, and that was before Qualcomm, that was before any of that. So it was really hectic, but it got to where I could tell their voice when they answered the phone. I could tell who it was by the tone of their voice, and I knew their families. I knew, what was important to them. And that really put, I had a very low turnover and very high work rate, very few out of service at one time. And it was because there was a mutual respect there, I think.
No, totally. And I think, well, kind of the final aspect on the safety culture side of things, but if I'm a safety director or an owner of a company and I'm, listening to this, I'm like, okay, hey, this Robert guy kind of brings up a lot of good points. Maybe my safety culture isn't as good as I thought it was. And I'm, wanting to take some actionable advice on, hey, what are some of the first steps that I can do, from an organizational standpoint to start shifting safety culture? What, I don't know, 1 to 3 pieces of quick tips that you'd start with.
Yeah. Talk to your drivers.
Talk to your drivers. I love that.
That's the first one. Talk to your drivers and ask them. And if your drivers are reluctant to talk to you, that really kind of says something. But do a poll that they can just respond to, no names, but just do a poll and talk to your employees. Look at the data. The data will tell you if you're reactive versus proactive. If you're seeing violation trends, or you're seeing trends that spike and then go down and then spike and then go down, that'll tell you that you're reactionary instead of proactive. That's a big key. And then invite somebody in just to have a look around. The money that you spend, you'll save, you'll get back. So But the biggest thing is be committed to the results. If you want to be a proactive carrier and you find that you're not, don't let that be a deterrent. Let that be a motivator. Be committed to the results, whatever they are, and then be committed to that paradigm shift, because it's going to be a huge change in the organization. People won't necessarily like it, but it's what's best for your organization. And really, your drivers are the key to the organization.
All right, so we're coming to the end of the podcast. I want to imagine you've been in the industry for so long, so I'm trying to get a story of two out of you.
Okay.
So we're gonna imagine me and you are we're at a bonfire right now. We're sitting around the fire, and I'm like, Robert, you've been in the industry for how long? Have you been in trucking for?
What, 35 years?
All right, you've been in trucking for 35 years. You've worked you've worked on the insurance side of things. What's your craziest big fish story that you tell me about your time in the industry?
Oh, I went and visited a client that was, I set up the appointment. He was in Atlanta. And I went in and went to the address and called him, and he wasn't there. He said he was down at his office, and he gave me the address for the office. So I went to the address, and it was in the Strip shopping center, and the address was a liquor store, and this was like 9 a.m. So I'm like, I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm at this address, but it's a liquor store." He said, "I'll be right there." And I'm looking in the mirror, and the grate on the liquor store opens up, and this guy comes walking towards me. His office was in this liquor store. And he said, "Yeah, come on in." And so they had a room in the back, and they're running this trucking company out of this liquor store in the back. And I'm thinking, if I die, no one will know. No, there's no way. I'm gonna have to fight my way out. So he says, "Hey, can I offer you a drink or something?" And I'm looking around, and there's
9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm good. So we start. Really nice guys, great guys. That just happened to be the space that they were in, but that took an unexpected turn for sure. Yeah.
You're like walking in, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You go in the back room, you like pass a room that there's like an underground poker table ring that's happening there. Then you turn over. Oh, it's a trucking company.
Smoke billowing out. Yeah. Gunshots going off.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Robert, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I guess just kind of a parting words, if you were going to give, one piece of advice to a trucking company trying to help their drivers live a healthier and happier and safer life out there on the road, what would you tell them?
Just communicate with your drivers and invest in them. There's a lot of trucking companies out there that are looking for drivers, that want drivers, that need drivers to move their freight. Ask yourself as a driver why somebody would pick you. Out of all the opportunities they have, why would they come to work for your organization? And if you can't name 4 or 5 things that are outstanding for your organization, those are the things that I would work on.
I love that. Yeah. If you're listening to this, invest in the people that make you money. Invest in your people who are, the front facing, advertising of who you are as an organization. And Robert, appreciate you coming on, and everyone listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Mark, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
I love how they act like they been around, know when they wasn't. When everything was going downhill, you sat there and just watched me plummet. You never gave a hand, I made my own way out the dungeon. Now I'm making noise, they wonder wondering what's all that ruckus. That's a 18-wheeler, semi-trailer, I'ma keep it trucking. Big rig driving, cargo hauling, I'ma keep it trucking. U-Haul moving, F-150, let's just keep it trucking. Out here busting moves, I ain't got time for no discussion.